Hello everyone, welcome back to Nurturing Corner with Shumee. Struggle to understand the right balance between freedom and limits, but both are important, and that is what we are going to look into in this episode.
So, Hindola, can you help us understand why is freedom very important for our little ones also?
The idea is that every child comes into this world with potential. And by giving freedom to this child, we're helping the child or allowing the child to bloom to their highest potential. Like every child comes with movement possibilities. We need to give the child the freedom of movement so that they can achieve all the movement possibilities that they are capable of.
But then with freedom also should come some boundaries and some limits. So, how do we also navigate that?
Yes. So freedom should come with its limitations or restrictions or boundaries. We call these limits. And these limits are important because the limits make the child feel secure. I know it doesn't sound like limits make someone secure, but it does. Like imagine a child given all the freedom and left alone on a street. Is the child going to feel safe and secure to explore? No. If they have these limits and these boundaries, they know that within that framework, they are going to be secure to explore. It's like having walls on a narrow bridge. You're going to feel secure to cross the bridge only when there are those parapet walls, right? Otherwise, it's a little scary to cross it.
Yeah. But then, as a parent and as a new parent who is understanding a lot of different aspects of parenting, how do you balance freedom and limits, right? You want to give freedom also, you want to set limits. Where do you set the limit and where do you give the child the freedom?
It's important to know we need to set limits for the child and not for the parent. It's not, I don't want my child to do this because I feel comfortable him not doing it, so I'll set a limit. Because some things the child needs to experience natural consequences. Like your child is not agreeing to go out, wear a sweater before going out into the cold. You can't say, no, you're not going out if you're not wearing a sweater. You don't need that limit because if the child does go out in the cold, the child is experiencing how his body is feeling, how that cold affects, maybe understand why the parent told the child to wear a sweater. So these consequences for the child to experience is very important. Otherwise, we're not giving the child any experience and we're robbing the child of the knowledge that he gets from these experiences.
But then again, where is the limit? It also is dependent on the parent, right? What a limit may be for you may not be a limit for me. Then how do we also understand our own limits that we are okay with? Because I think that's very important for the parent to answer. Like my freedom is different from another parent's freedom.
So I think a broad idea to keep is to think of the child's safety and security and to have limits around that. Like you can have a limit saying no screen time because it does have, you're keeping your safety of the child in mind. It's not cognitively or emotionally anything conducive for the child. So you have that limit, right? You're not allowing the child to maybe use some big slide on the park because you feel that it's not safe enough for the child. So keeping safety and security as a broad idea and setting limits based on that, I think makes sense because otherwise we give in to our fears, right? And then start setting limits for everything. Yeah.
Okay. And does this also concept that limits also gradually change as the child is growing, right? For a 1 year old, the same thing may not be safe and secure, but for a 3 year old, it may be. So, how do we also make the child understand that we are navigating this whole thing or giving more freedom because the child is grown up or is more capable of doing something? So, is that something, a conversation to be had?
Limits are normally always communicated. So as your child see your child grow and as you see that the child is getting more experience, like even screen time, I can give you an example, is we used to have a no screen policy for our child when he was young. Now he's 6 years old. Now we know that he has the ability to control himself. He has that willpower to control. So we say you can choose 15 minutes of screen time. So the limit has changed. And you communicate saying, see, now you're capable of stopping at 15 minutes. You know how to see the clock. After 15 minutes, please stop. And to trust the child to follow those limits is also important. Yeah.
And what if they don't follow the limits? Then is there anything that there should be a consequence for not following the limit, or is that not a thing?
Yes, so that becomes punishment. So limit itself is our consequences. So And limits should be natural and logical, right? You can't have limits. You can't say, if you don't finish your food, I'm not taking you to the park. That can't be a limit. That's a punishment, because it's not at all natural or logical, right? Or if you drop food on the floor, the natural thing would be, you have, the limit is that you have to go get a brush and dustpan and clean it up. That's the consequence of dropping food on the floor. It can't be not going to the park or not having a story read. It needs to be. So that is the consequence. A limit, not following a limit, should really not have consequences. Consistently, if we are consistent about limits, saying and communicating limits, and we always stick to it, then it always helps. Initially, when the children are young, to collaborate to help. So if you have a limit, like I said about cleaning up after playing or after eating, the child won't be able to do it on their own. You collaborate, or at least let the child watch you, even if he's not agreeing to clean up. Then slowly the child will pick it up and start doing that. So consistency is a very important thing, and repetition is an important thing. So this parent had a limit that no ice creams during weekdays, only on weekends. So when they gave ice cream at school, the child did not take, because she was following this limit so carefully and did not take. But the parent, when the child came out and said, I didn't take ice cream today because, and all my friends took, that our parent felt really bad and went to the shop and got an ice cream. So now the parent is breaking this consistency, and then it's so confusing for the child. Rather to appreciate the child for following the limit and saying thank you, and we will get an ice cream on this Sunday, that helps the child, the consistency and repetition.
So I think it's interesting you brought this up, because most of us live also in a, like, not in a joint family setup where you have other family members. They also have to align with your limits, and so how do we make that a smooth experience for everyone, right?
So it is, you're lucky if you can have family who understands why you're setting these limits, and if they follow your lead and do it. You can't expect that though always, but children are very good at understanding that this is a limit that mama or papa set, and these limits don't exist with the grandparents. If I go to my grandparents' house, this is not there. They will act, they know that. And it's okay, I think, for us to give that leeway and say, okay, in your grandparents' house, this doesn't work, that's fine, but in this house, these are the limits. To give that little leeway so that they don't judge the grandparents also.
Or they don't judge you also.
That judge you also, that's true.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
I
No,
think
that's interesting. Also, sometimes I feel there's also a little bit of a conflict between the parents also, right? I mean, what a dad's concept of freedom maybe may not be for the mother, because our sense of safety, security also is different, right? So, and also maybe sometimes for what is the limit for a girl or a boy. So some of these dynamics also play out. So how do we, again, as a family, make it a happy experience for everyone?
Yeah, that's true. Especially when the husband and wife are not on the same page. Yes, it is a very difficult one. You could try to explain to each other, but anytime you have difference of opinion, depending on the child's age, if the child is very young, it's good to not show that difference of opinion, to stand as one unit. Even if you are not in agreement with with that limit or that freedom, to stand as one unit and to give the other person that control is fine, because at this age it's important for the child to see both the parents as one unit. But as the child grows, say 5 years or 6 years old, now they can see conflict, and it's good for them to see conflict and how the parents resolve it in a very amicable, civil way. And not to shelter them from conflict completely, also to see that, and how they settle it in a civil way. That's important also.
Yeah, so at least then they are open to different perspectives and things. It's good to give the freedom to your little one, but it's also important to have a balance between freedom and limits for a safe and secure development of your child. So stay tuned with us for our next episode next week. We would love to hear from you. Write in, send in your questions, and we would be happy to answer. Till then, bye.